Hi everybody, Charles from GMAT Ninja here. Today we're going to talk about how to start your GMAT studies the right way. Now obviously if you're brand new to the GMAT, this video is meant for you, but even if you're not totally new to the GMAT and maybe you've studied for a little bit and you feel like you've been flailing or not getting the results you want or maybe not being all that efficient with it, this video should help you quite a bit as well. So some of the things we're going to get into in this video, we're going to talk about practice tests, especially that very first one you might take, how to interpret it, how to put the results in context, how competitive is it compared to your peers, when should you consider the GRE or the EA, how long might it take you to achieve a certain level of score improvement. Then we're going to do one of the more awkward decisions you're going to face. Should you do self-study? Should you hire a tutor? Should you buy a course of some kind? If so, what kind of course? So we'll talk about how to think about that decision. For those of you who are self-studying, I'll give you a little bit of advice on how to kick that off efficiently and which resources to use. Then as we get towards the end of the video, I'm going to talk about some of the things that I'm pretty passionate about, how to avoid burnout, how to avoid stress and anxiety in this process as much as you can. And just as importantly, when are the moments when you should reach out for help? So what are the red flags when you look at your own results, your homework, your practice tests? When should you look at it and go, self-studying's not working, this course isn't working, maybe I should reach out to somebody? We'll talk about how to think about that decision as well. All right, a really obvious first step to take is to take a practice test. But I want to talk about how to do that the right way so you get the most out of it. A few things. First of all, make sure that that practice test is official. Go to MBA.com, click on the free starter kit in your MBA.com account. 2 free practice tests. They run the exact same algorithm as the actual exam. So it's going to give you a very, very accurate snapshot of where you stand. So make sure it's an official test. Second, I don't want you to overstudy before you jump in there. One of the things I hear from students all the time, I don't want to touch a practice test until I'm familiar with the questions. Okay, fair enough. If you want to familiarize yourself with the question styles, go for it. Do maybe 3 to 5 of each type. There's also some free questions loaded up into that very same starter kit at MBA.com. You want to try a few of those just so they're not totally unfamiliar? That's great. What I don't want you to do is get sucked into massive amounts of studying. I actually had an inquiry from a tutoring student a few months ago who had done 600 hours of studying. I'm not making this up, 600 hours of studying, and had never taken a practice test. And when he said, oh, my score goal is a 700, he had no idea where he stood. Don't let that happen to you. Don't overstudy before this practice test. It should be somewhat cold, no more than a little bit of familiarization with the questions. Don't do any more than that. Please, it might be a waste of your time. Third and finally, I want to make sure that you answer every single question in that practice test. The reason is that there's a severe penalty for omitting questions. That's going to warp your score, give you kind of the wrong read on where you stand. So even if you have to blindly guess at the end of the section, please make sure you answer every single question on that practice test. Okay, once you have that nice practice test score in hand, a very simple thing I want you to do is just calculate how far you are from your target score. Now, I don't want you to base that target score on some number you pull out of the sky. I hear people all the time who say, oh, I want a 700 because that's an important number, it's round, it's great. When they really aren't going to get into their target schools with that 700, or 700 is way more than they need for their target schools. So the right way to do it, go make a list of the 3 to 5 schools you're most interested in, look at their median scores, ignore the outliers for now, just focus on that median, and say, okay, how many points away am I from the median score for people that get into my target programs? Now, related to that, if you think for some reason you need a higher score to make up for something in your profile, or you think you're an amazing candidate and you can get away with a lower score, that's great. But if you're not totally sure about that, please talk to a really good admissions consultant. If you need a recommendation for a good one at any number of different companies, hit us up at gmatninja.com. We'll send you some recommendations. Bottom line, once you get that official practice test score, I want you to calculate the distance from where you are to where you want to be. And next up, we'll help you interpret that result. All right, so now that you've calculated the distance between where you are and where you want to be on the GMAT, your next question is probably, well, just how long is this going to take and how screwed am I? Okay, I wish I could say to you, it typically takes a certain number of weeks or months to gain 30 points or 50 points or 100 points. Unfortunately, I can't do any of that. There are just too many different factors that will determine how quickly you improve. So some people just learn more quickly than others. Some people study harder than others. Some people are just blessed with weaknesses that are easier to improve. So there's no rules of thumb that are going to work. That said, I'm going to try to give you a couple anchor points that'll give you at least some context on just how far you're going to have to travel. One point of reference is that the average person who retakes the actual GMAT exam improves by about 30 points, and that's data that comes from GMAT, the creators of the GMAT. So 30 points is a typical improvement. If you're trying to gain a lot more than 30 points, I want you to be buckled in for a potentially long, hard ride. In particular, if you're looking for 100 points or more, Guys, that is a ton. I know it's kind of an abstract number and people go 100 points out of a scale of 205 to 805. It doesn't sound like that much. It's a ton, and if you're trying to gain 80 or 100 points or more than that, I want you to be prepared for months of consistent hard work, not weeks. One more thing to keep in mind about GMAT scoring. So if you're trying to gain 20 points on your composite, you need 3 points on any individual section to get that. So for example, if you raise your quant score from a 75 to a 78, those 3 points will raise your composite score by 20 points. So all else being equal, schools tend to prefer nice balanced scores. And typically, if you need a bigger improvement on one section and smaller improvements on the others, that's going to make your life a little bit tougher. Anything more than about 5 or 6 points is really, really tough. And that's when you're looking at a time horizon, typically to improve by 5+ points on a section. That's going to take you months, not weeks. All right, so if you're one of the people that just listened to that last part of the video and said, oh crap, I need to gain 100 points or more, I must be really screwed, this is terrible. First of all, don't panic. Second, you might be somebody who might do better with the GRE or the executive assessment. Nearly all MBA programs that accept the GMAT will also accept the GRE. A large number of them, particularly part-time and executive programs, will also accept the executive assessment. I don't want to get into the weeds of the details of the 3 exams here. We have another video for that we'll put in the video description. But just know that if you are looking at the GMAT and going, wow, I've got a long ways to go, I didn't enjoy taking this test, you might want to go explore those alternatives. Go try a practice test for the executive assessment and or the GRE and see if that's a better fit for you. All right, so if you've made the decision to stick with the GMAT, the next decision you get to make is how exactly to start your studies. So broadly speaking, you have 3 or 4 options. So you could self-study, just use free resources or cheap resources like books. You could get a course, and those come in many different flavors. There's on-demand courses where you just log into something and kind of do your thing. There's more structured courses with a live instructor of some sort. And then at the most expensive end, you have one-on-one tutoring. Now, I can't tell you which one is best. It just depends on your situation, your budget, and so on. But I can give you a little bit of a framework for thinking about how to make that decision. So as you go from cheap to more expensive, you're really paying for 2 things. 1 is structure, and 2 is efficiency. So how does that work? So if you're self-studying, you make all the decisions. You have to decide where to spend your time. Sometimes it can be really difficult to know if you're spending your time efficiently. Sometimes it's difficult to know how much you're improving. Some of you are going to be great at doing all that on your own. Some of you are going to struggle. So if you want the least expensive option, just know that the trade-off is, for most of you, it's going to be less efficient and it's going to have less structure than if you pay for something. Now, as you move up that cost chain, on-demand courses, some of those are very, very inexpensive. Often you're just logging into an on-demand system. You do practice questions, watch videos at your own pace. That gives you a little bit more structure, but not that much yet. Now, as you get to live taught courses, there's an actual instructor and they can help you pinpoint your weaknesses. Now, those courses are often going to be a little bit one size fits all, but it will at least have some sort of structure. Here's your homework. There's some accountability baked in. Maybe you can get a little bit of one-on-one attention from that instructor to help pinpoint your weaknesses and make your studying more efficient. And then obviously, as you go to the highest end one-on-one tutoring, really when that works well, you're doing very, very little of that stuff on your own. You're not worrying about how to study, what to study. Your tutor takes care of that for you. Great tutors are going to analyze your homework results and just say, hey, here's where I want you to put your energy. Here's how I want you to study. Here's what I want you to study. Here's when I want you to study it. And a lot of that guesswork gets taken out of it. So bottom line here is, as you think about all of that, a lot of people love to start with a cheap option and then pay only when they need to. That's wonderful if that's what you'd like to do. If you know that you're great at providing your own structure and motivation, great, start with the self-study. If you know that you need structure, or if you know that you really are short on time and you want to get this done as quickly and efficiently as you can, that's when you might want to pay for a live taught course or for a one-on-one tutor. Okay, I could yap at you for hours and hours about different ways you can enhance your GMAT studies, but I want to focus on 2 really important ones here before you jump in and start doing too much more. First one is, official questions are always the best thing. So GMAT, the people who write the test, they spend literally thousands of dollars on every individual test question. There's a heck of a process involved. Writing the question, editing it, editing it some more, maybe testing it again. There's statisticians involved. It's a heck of a thing. Now, test prep companies are only going to spend a little tiny proportion of that. We might write really good questions. I think our questions are pretty good. They might be really good for practice, but whenever you have the choice between official and non-official, please choose the official ones. And that includes the questions we write. They're just not the same as the official ones. Second, whatever you do, don't binge. What do I mean by that? Now, the GMAT is meant to be a reasoning exam. It's not a knowledge-based exam. You can't memorize a bunch of stuff and have it move the needle a whole lot on your score. There's nothing memorized for reading comprehension. You just have to get better at focusing, reading in the right ways, focusing on the right things. Same thing on data insights. Even quant, it feels like you're studying and learning stuff, but really it's about your ability to take fundamental pieces of math and kind of solve these puzzle-like questions with them. So what we see from students over and over and over is once you start studying too much, you start studying 12 hours in a day or even 5, diminishing returns set in, you're reading badly, you're getting sloppy, you're not reasoning as deeply, and all of those things are absolutely crucial on the GMAT. So whatever you do in a given day, I want you to cap yourself at a couple of really high quality hours. It's going to be a different number for different people, maybe 2 hours on a work day, maybe 3 or 4 on a non-work day. It's very rare that we see anybody study for a 5th hour and it actually helps them. It usually starts to hurt because you get sloppy, you get fatigued, and you're actually building bad habits. So the best way to study for the GMAT, slow, steady, high quality, 2 hours, maybe 3 or 4 per day, no more than that. Do that steadily over time, focus on quality, and that's going to be the most efficient way to improve. All right, as you start to get serious about your GMAT studies, I can promise you're going to have moments where you think, hey, I want to see if my score has gone up. I'm going to go take a practice test. And I want you to be really careful about when and how you do that. So there are 6 official practice tests available at mba.com, 2 free, 4 paid. You can typically take all of those tests a second time and you won't see too many repeated questions. So in a sense, you kind of have 12 of them. That sounds like a lot, but we see a lot of things go wrong where students use them too quickly or they use them in the wrong ways and it's not efficient. And once you run out of those practice tests, there's really no good way to know where you stand before you walk in for the real thing. So how to use them thoughtfully. So let's say that verbal is your biggest weakness and you're kind of saying, let me see if I've improved. I'll go take a verbal practice test. I want you to do that only when there are other signs that you've improved. So if you're doing a bunch of homework, you're grinding through reading comp and critical reasoning sets and the official guides, and you see the progress, you feel better on the questions, and you can look at your results and say, hey, my accuracy has improved, my times have improved, only then should you go do practice tests. So you want to see progress on your homework, on the official guides, and whatever other homework you're doing, and that's when you go use the practice tests. Use them as a way of quantifying your progress, use them as a check on your progress, use them as a way to see if you can apply what you've learned under pressure. But whatever you do, don't take them until you're sure you've improved a little bit, because it's shockingly easy to run out of those practice tests, and it's also a waste of your time to take them when you're not really ready. All right, I want to finish up today with something that everybody here at GMAT Ninja is really passionate about, and that's reducing the pain and stress of the study process. So we could talk for hours about that. I want to focus on just 3 things that I want you to look for as you're studying. First one is I want you to really look for signs of burnout, and I want you to do everything you can to avoid burnout. Now, a lot of the students that we get who are just showing up for tutoring, they've been studying for months, sometimes even years. A lot of those guys are just so burnt out. They hate this stuff at this point. They're exhausted, and it's almost impossible to learn and very much impossible to execute well when you feel that way. So you want to avoid that at all costs. That's part of why I was saying earlier, I don't want you binging. The right formula is 2 hours, maximum of 3 or 4 hours of really high quality studying every day. Don't go beyond that. If you spend 10 hours on Saturday, 10 hours on Sunday, you have no life. You're studying like a lunatic. That's a recipe for burnout, and that's when you're going to hit a point where you just can't improve on this test. So keep your life balanced, take care of your body, get exercise, eat well, get some sleep. I'm not saying those things to be a nice guy. I'm saying that because if you're not taking care of yourself in ways beyond just studying, it's going to be really hard to execute well on a test like this. So don't let yourself get burned out. Slow, steady, high quality prep, take care of your body, keep balance in your life, maintain a social life, do all of those things that make you happy, and you're going to do better in the long run on this exam. Second thing I want you to look out for is as soon as you're looking at your results and going, wait a minute, I don't know why my score is the way it is. I've been studying, it's not improving, I don't know why. That's when I want you to go get help. So if you've been self-studying, that's great. A lot of you are going to be very successful doing this on your own, but you don't want to let bad habits fester. So what we see in a lot of our students is they've been studying on their own for a little bit too long, and their real problem might be careless errors or something like test anxiety or something about their habits that's causing them to miss questions they're capable of getting right, bad time management maybe. So sometimes it's really hard to identify those habits in yourself. And if you're looking at your results and going, I don't know why they're not moving, please don't keep doing what you're doing. Please reach out for help. Reach out to a course instructor, reach out on GMAT Club to experts, hire a tutor, whatever you need to do, but make sure you get somebody in the room who can help you figure out what exactly is going wrong. Third and final thing, I just want all of you to know that test anxiety is incredibly common. If you're doing great on your homework and then you go to take a practice test or go to take the actual exam and all of a sudden your performance is worse, it may well be a sign of anxiety. It is incredibly common, and there are plenty of ways you can deal with that. We've got plenty of resources here on our YouTube channel, plenty of resources at gmatninja.com. We even have a couple of psychologists on staff that help people with test anxiety. So whatever you do, if that's an issue for you, please be honest with yourself about it. And when you feel like you're not quite sure what to do and you keep getting jittery and your score is suffering, please reach out to somebody for help. All right, that's it for today. Enjoy your studies and thank you so much for watching.